You are standing in a field right now. The sun is going down. Your stomach is growling. You haven't eaten since morning. And right in front of you, in that field, are hundreds of rabbits. They are everywhere. They breed fast. They eat grass. They need almost no space. They are quiet, gentle, and they will not fight back. By every logical measure, this should be the perfect food animal. And yet, you walk past them, you go home, you order a burger, or you make chicken, or literally anything else. And you don't even think twice about it. Most people assume it's just a cultural thing. Or maybe rabbits are too cute. Maybe it's just habit. But here's what nobody tells you. The real answer has nothing to do with cuteness. It has nothing to do with taste. It reaches deep into your biology, into the way your body actually works. And when you understand it, you will never look at what you eat the same way again. Stay until the end. Because the final part of this story reveals something about your own survival instincts that most people will never know. Let's start with the numbers. Because on paper, rabbits are almost too good to be true. A single pair of rabbits can produce over 300 offspring in a single year. Think about that. 300. A chicken takes 21 days to hatch. A cow takes 9 months to produce one calf. A rabbit doe gives birth in 30 days, and she can get pregnant again within hours of giving birth. She doesn't even need a break. Feed conversion is even more impressive. To produce 1 kilogram of beef, a cow needs roughly 6 to 8 kilograms of feed. For 1 kilogram of rabbit meat, you need less than 3 kilograms of feed. Rabbits also need far less water than cattle. They produce almost no methane compared to ruminant animals. Their waste is one of the best natural fertilizers on Earth, and they can live and thrive in a space no bigger than your closet. So if you were designing the perfect livestock animal from scratch, you would basically describe a rabbit, which is exactly why this question is so strange. Why isn't rabbit meat everywhere? Why isn't it the most common protein on the planet? Here's where it gets fascinating and a little unsettling. There is a condition called rabbit starvation. It has been documented throughout history. And the name alone tells you something is deeply wrong. Imagine you are an explorer in North America. The year is the early 1800s. You are somewhere in the Canadian wilderness in January. The snow is 4 feet deep. The temperature is 30 below. You have no food. But there are rabbits, hundreds of them. Snowshoe hares, darting between the trees. You are a skilled trapper, so you set your snares, you catch them by the dozen. You roast them over a fire every night, you eat as much as you possibly can. And then, a few weeks later, you start to feel strange. You're eating constantly, but you're getting weaker. Your muscles feel hollow, you feel nauseous and dizzy. Your body is screaming for something, but you can't figure out what. And if nobody rescues you, you will die, even though you had a full belly every single night. This happened to real people. It terrified early European explorers in North America. They called it rabbit starvation, or protein poisoning. And it reveals one of the most important and least talked about facts about how your body actually works. Rabbit meat is almost pure protein, almost zero fat. A wild rabbit has a body fat content of around 3 to 5%. For comparison, a typical cut of pork is around 15 to 30% fat. And here is the brutal truth your body has known for hundreds of thousands of years. You cannot survive on protein alone. Your liver can only process a certain amount of protein at a time. After that, the excess nitrogen from breaking down all that protein becomes toxic. Ammonia builds up in your blood. Your kidneys go into overdrive trying to flush it out. And you end up dehydrating yourself from the inside, even while you're eating. Researchers who have studied traditional Arctic and subarctic diets, like the work done by researchers at the University of Wisconsin in the 1980s studying indigenous survival strategies, found that native peoples of the North never ate rabbit alone. They always mixed it with fat. Fat from fish. Fat from beaver. Fat from whatever source they could find. Because they understood, through centuries of hard experience, that rabbit without fat was not food. It was a trap. Now here's the part most people don't know. This was not just a wilderness survival problem, this was a civilizational problem, because rabbit starvation explained something strange that historians kept noticing. Across dozens of cultures, across thousands of years of human history, there has been a deep, quiet resistance to relying on rabbit meat as a staple food. In ancient Rome, rabbit meat was eaten, but mostly as a delicacy, not a staple. In medieval Europe, rabbits were farmed in warrens by monasteries and nobility. But the poor, the people who needed a reliable food source most, rarely turned to rabbits as their primary protein. And when researchers started looking at why, the answer kept coming back to the same thing: fat, or rather, the lack of it. A wild rabbit does not store fat the way other animals do. It is built for speed and survival. All of its energy goes into muscle and movement, which makes it paradoxically one of the worst staple foods for human survival. You can eat all day and still starve. And your body learned this lesson long before you were born. This is where the story gets personal, because what you are about to understand is not just about rabbits. It is about you, about why you crave what you crave, about why certain foods feel satisfying and others leave you hungry an hour later. Your body has been running a fat detection system for millions of years. Evolutionary biologists call this nutrient sensing. Your tongue, your gut, your brain are all constantly scanning what you eat and asking one question: is this going to keep me alive? And fat triggers a very specific response. Fat releases hormones like leptin and cholecystokinin. These hormones travel to your brain and signal something ancient and powerful: stop. You have enough. You are safe. Protein alone does not trigger the same signal, which is why a meal of pure lean meat, rabbit or otherwise, leaves you feeling oddly unsatisfied. Your brain is not measuring calories. It is measuring survival potential. And through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, your ancestors learned that fat was the single most valuable nutrient in the wild. Not calories in the abstract. Fat specifically. Because fat is what gets you through winter. Fat is what keeps your brain functioning when there is no food for 3 days. Fat is what makes the difference between surviving a cold snap and dying in it. Rabbits, no matter how abundant, never reliably delivered that. And so your ancestors developed, at a deep biological level, a preference for animals that did. Here's what is fascinating about that. The animals we domesticated as our primary food sources were not chosen randomly. Pigs are roughly 50% fat when raised traditionally. Cattle, especially in winter, store enormous fat reserves. Sheep and goats do the same. Even chickens, our leanest major livestock, are fattier than rabbit by a wide margin. The historian Jared Diamond, in his famous 1997 work, Guns, Germs and Steel, outlined what he called the criteria for a domesticable animal: predictable diet, fast growth rate, ability to breed in captivity, non-dangerous, social hierarchy that accepts human control. Rabbits technically pass most of these. But Diamond also noted something quieter. In the historical record, the animals that became staples were the ones that provided the most complete nutrition. And complete nutrition for an ancient human, or a prehistoric one, meant fat, not just protein. So the cow won, the pig won, the sheep won. And the rabbit became something you occasionally eat at a fancy restaurant when you want to feel European. But there is one more layer to this story. And it is the strangest part. Because rabbit starvation is not just ancient history, it has been rediscovered painfully multiple times in the modern era. In the early 20th century, as diet science was just beginning to develop, several researchers noticed something troubling. Populations that were fed high-protein, low-fat diets consistently developed health problems. They lost muscle despite eating protein constantly. They developed digestive issues. Their energy crashed. This was documented in clinical nutritional studies starting in the 1920s, including work by Vilhjalmur Stefansson, the Arctic explorer who spent over a year living with the Inuit and later conducted a famous supervised experiment in 1928 at Bellevue Hospital in New York. Stefansson and a colleague ate nothing but meat for a full year. but not lean meat. Fatty meat. Deliberately fatty. Every time researchers tried to make them eat only the lean portions, their health deteriorated within days. Diarrhea, weakness, nausea. The moment fat was reintroduced, they recovered. The experiment became one of the most cited early demonstrations that human metabolism requires dietary fat to function. Not just protein, not just calories. Fat specifically. Now think about what this means for you today. Every time you have eaten something and felt satisfied, truly satisfied in a way that lasted for hours, that feeling was fat doing its job. Every time you have eaten something low fat and felt strangely empty an hour later, that was your ancient survival system saying this is not enough. You are not being weak or undisciplined. Your body is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is protecting you from rabbit starvation, which is extraordinary when you think about it. The memory of a danger that most humans in the modern world will never face, built so deep into your body that no amount of willpower can completely override it. But the rabbit story has one final twist, because in some parts of the world, rabbit meat did become a staple. In the Iberian Peninsula, particularly in Spain and Portugal, rabbit has been a central part of the diet for centuries. Paella, the iconic Spanish dish, was originally made with rabbit and snail, not seafood. And if you look at the traditional recipes, there is always something else in the pot. Olive oil, pork fat, chorizo. The Spanish didn't just eat rabbit. They figured out how to eat rabbit safely. They paired it with fat. They made it work. And this shows something beautiful about human ingenuity. We found the loophole. We found a way to turn a biological trap into a nutritional resource, but it required thousands of years of cultural trial and error to get there, and most cultures never made that leap. They just quietly stepped away from the rabbit and reached for the pig or the cow. So why don't we eat rabbit meat when it is by almost every measure the most efficient animal protein available? Because efficiency is not what your body is optimizing for. Your body is optimizing for survival. And survival, for most of human history, meant fat. Rabbit offered protein without fat. And protein without fat, as your ancestors learned through suffering, is not food. It is a slow trap. The animals we chose to eat were not chosen because they were the most efficient. They were chosen because they kept us alive. Because they triggered that ancient signal deep in the brain. Safe. Satisfied. You will make it through the winter. And here is the thought I want you to sit with. The next time you feel that pull towards something rich and fatty, the next time a salad leaves you hollow and a piece of roast pork leaves you full, that is not weakness. That is millions of years of survival memory, running on autopilot, keeping you alive. The rabbit was always right there, abundant, efficient, easy to catch. And your body, quietly without ever telling you why, knew it was not enough. It still does.